When pride comes before the fall. I'm ashamed to call you my father. That's what my son said right there in my driveway. I didn't argue. I let him drive off, leaving me with silence and sawdust. But a week later, the hospital called. Your son's asking for you. Now he's in a bed, pale and shaking, and I'm the only one he wants. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. My name's Frank Miller. I'm 72 years old, retired construction foreman, widower going on 8 years now, and apparently a disappointment of a father. At least according to my son, Michael. It was a Sunday afternoon when Michael said those words to me. We were standing in my driveway. He'd come over for our monthly lunch, something we'd been doing since Sarah, my wife, passed. It wasn't much, but it was our ritual. This time, though, things went sideways. I'd made an offhand comment about his new Tesla. Something about how in my day we drove real American cars, not computers on wheels. It was just old man talk, the kind of thing my own father would have said. But Michael, he's always been sensitive. Too sensitive, Sarah used to say. You know what, Dad? I'm tired of your judgments. I'm tired of never being good enough. I'm ashamed to call you my father. Then he got in that fancy car and drove away, leaving me standing there with my mouth hanging open like a damn fool. That was 2 weeks ago. I hadn't heard from him since. Every morning since then, I've followed the same routine. Up at 5:30, some habits from 40 years of construction work don't die. Coffee on the back porch while the sun comes up. A simple breakfast, then tinkering in my workshop until lunch. This morning was no different. I sat on my weathered porch swing, coffee mug warming my hands against the October chill. The maple tree in my backyard was showing off its colors, deep reds and bright oranges. Sarah would have loved it. She always said fall was God's way of showing off. You see that, Sarah? I whispered to the empty chair beside me. Our boy's ashamed of his old man. Talking to Sarah had become a habit too. Sometimes I swear I can feel her sitting right next to me, nudging me to stop being so stubborn. Today I could almost hear her saying, "Call him Frank, pride's a luxury for young men," but I couldn't, not after what he said. My coffee had gone cold by the time I finally stood up. The day stretched ahead of me, empty as usual. I headed to my workshop, a converted garage filled with half-finished woodworking projects. Sarah used to joke that I built things because I couldn't figure out how to fix people. Maybe she was right. I picked up a piece of cherry wood I'd been shaping into a jewelry box. It was supposed to be a Christmas gift for Michael's wife, Jennifer. Now I wasn't sure if I'd ever give it to her. As I sanded the edges, my mind drifted back to when Michael was just a boy. 10 years old, gangly limbs and a gap-toothed smile. He'd come out to the garage after school, dragging his backpack, asking if he could help. "Hand me that screwdriver, son," I'd say, and he'd beam like I'd just handed him the keys to the kingdom. We built a birdhouse together that spring. It wasn't much. Crooked nails and uneven paint, but Michael was so proud. We hung it in the backyard maple, and when a family of chickadees moved in, you'd have thought the boy had built the Taj Mahal. Where did we lose that? When did my approval stop being enough for him? The phone rang, startling me from my memories. I wiped sawdust from my hands and picked up my cell. Unknown number. Hello? Mr. Miller? Frank Miller? A woman's voice, unfamiliar. Speaking. This is Westside Memorial Hospital. We have your son, Michael Miller, in our emergency department. You're listed as his emergency contact. My heart dropped to my stomach. What happened? Is he okay? He's stable, but he's asking for you. The doctor can explain more when you arrive. I was in my truck before I even hung up, my hands shaking as I turned the key in the ignition. The drive to the hospital was a blur. All I could think was, not Michael. Please, not my boy. The emergency room was chaos, crying children, tired nurses, the antiseptic smell that always reminded me of Sarah's final days. I gave Michael's name at the desk, and they directed me to a curtained area in the back. He looked small in that hospital bed, pale, tubes in his arm. His eyes were closed, but they fluttered open when I approached. "Dad," he whispered. "You came, of course I came." What kind of question was that? "What happened, son?" I pulled a plastic chair close to his bed. "Just got a little dizzy at work. Passed out. They're running tests." His voice was weak. "Probably nothing." But the worry in his eyes told me it wasn't nothing. A doctor came in then, young woman, couldn't have been more than 35. She introduced herself as Dr. Chen and explained, that Michael had experienced a syncopal episode. Fancy talk for fainting, and they were concerned about his heart rhythm. We'd like to keep him overnight for observation, she said, just to be safe. Michael nodded, then looked at me with those same eyes he'd had as a child when he was scared. Dad, can you call Jennifer? She's in Chicago for a conference. I don't want to worry her, but I'll call her, I said, patting his hand. After the doctor left, we sat in awkward silence. 2 weeks of unsaid words hanging between us. About what I said, he started. I waved him off. We don't need to talk about that now. No, I want to. He shifted in the bed, wincing slightly. I shouldn't have said that. I was angry. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The relief of seeing him alive mixed with the lingering hurt of his words. Actually, Dad, there's something I need to talk to you about. Something important. He hesitated. But not here. When I get out tomorrow, can we meet? Maybe at your place? Sure, son. Whatever you need. That night I called Jennifer from the hospital parking lot. She was frantic, ready to book the first flight home. I assured her Michael was stable, that the doctors were just being cautious. She calmed down eventually, thanking me for being there with him. He loves you, Frank, she said before hanging up, even when he doesn't show it well. I wanted to believe her. The next day they released Michael with instructions to follow up with a cardiologist. I drove him home to his fancy house in the suburbs, all glass and steel, nothing like the cozy colonial where he grew up. He asked if I'd come back tomorrow for lunch, said we needed to talk. I'll be there, I promised. That night, alone in my too-quiet house, I sat in Sarah's old rocking chair. The mantel above the fireplace was crowded with photos. Michael's graduation, his wedding day, Sarah and me on our 30th anniversary, just a year before her diagnosis. I picked up a frame I hadn't looked at in years. It showed me at about 35, holding 5-year-old Michael on my shoulders at the state fair. We were both sunburned and smiling, cotton candy stuck to his cheeks. I gave up a lot for that boy, Sarah, I said to the empty room. Remember that promotion I turned down because it meant moving to Dallas? Right when he was starting high school? That wasn't the only sacrifice. There was the college fund we scraped together, dollar by dollar, sometimes working 2 jobs between us. The basement we finished for him to practice with his band, even though the noise gave me headaches. The down payment we helped with on his first house, emptying our own retirement savings. Not that I ever saw those as sacrifices then. That's just what parents do. But now, with his words still stinging, ashamed to call you my father, I couldn't help but wonder if he ever appreciated any of it. I put the photo back and went to bed, though sleep wouldn't come easy. The next morning, I woke up determined to listen to whatever Michael had to say. Maybe this health scare had put things in perspective for both of us. Maybe we could find our way back to those afternoons in the garage, when being father and son was simple. I was in the kitchen making sandwiches, roast beef with horseradish, Michael's favorite since he was a teenager. When the doorbell rang, he looked better today. Some color back in his face. Dressed in his usual business casual, khakis and a button-down, sleeves rolled up to show the expensive watch Jennifer had given him for their anniversary. Come in, I said, stepping aside. I made lunch. Thanks, Dad. He followed me to the kitchen, glancing around at the house. Nothing had changed much since Sarah died. I couldn't bring myself to redecorate. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we'd had thousands of family meals. I waited for him to take the first bite before starting on my own sandwich. This is good, he said, just like Mom used to make. She taught me well. I smiled despite myself. We ate in silence for a few minutes. Then Michael put down his sandwich and cleared his throat. Dad, I need to talk to you about something. It's a big deal. I nodded for him to continue. Jennifer and I are having some financial troubles. The house, it's underwater. The market tanked right after we bought it, and with the medical bills from her mom's cancer treatment last year, he trailed off looking down at his plate. How bad is it? I asked. Bad, we're 3 months behind on the mortgage. The bank is threatening foreclosure. He took a deep breath. Dad, I need help, alone, just until I can get things straightened out. And there it was, the real reason for this reconciliation. How much? My voice sounded hollow to my own ears. $50,000. I nearly choked on my sandwich. $50,000? Michael, I know it's a lot, but it would save our house. And I promise I'll pay you back every penny. His eyes were pleading. Please, Dad. I wouldn't ask if there was any other way. I thought about my savings. Most of it was tied up in retirement accounts. There was the emergency fund Sarah had insisted we keep, about $30,000, and the $20,000 I'd set aside for a new truck. As my old Ford was pushing 15 years, I could do it, barely. But I could. Let me think about it, I said finally. This isn't a small thing you're asking. Relief flooded his face. He hadn't expected even that much, of course. Take your time, but he hesitated. The bank needs the money by the end of the month. That's just 2 weeks away. 2 weeks after he'd told me he was ashamed to call me his father. He was asking me for $50,000. The irony wasn't lost on me. After lunch, Michael helped me wash the dishes, something he hadn't done since high school. He talked about his job, about Jennifer's work, about everything except the money or what he'd said that day in the driveway. When he left, he hugged me. It felt stiff, obligatory. I stood in the doorway watching his Tesla pull away, wondering what Sarah would tell me to do. She always had a better read on people, especially our son. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Michael's face in that hospital bed, vulnerable and scared, about the little boy who'd helped me build a crooked birdhouse, about the harsh words spoken in anger. Was this request genuine need or calculated manipulation? Was I a father he was ashamed of, or a bank he could withdraw from? By morning, I still didn't have an answer, but I did have a plan. The next morning, I called my old friend Bill Thompson. We'd worked construction together for 30 years before retirement. These days, he was the closest thing I had to a confidant since Sarah passed. $50,000? Bill whistled low into the phone when I told him about Michael's request. That's not pocket change, Frank. Tell me about it. I was sitting at my kitchen table, staring at my bank statements spread out in front of me. But he's my son, Bill, and they might lose their house. The same son who said he was ashamed of you 2 weeks ago. Bill's voice held no judgment, just the plain-spoken honesty of a man who'd known me long enough to say what he thought. People say things they don't mean when they're angry, I said, though the words still stung when I thought about them. Sure they do. But timing's a funny thing, isn't it? He has a falling out with you, then shows up needing money. Doesn't that strike you as convenient? It did. That's why I'd called Bill in the first place. Not that I'd admit it. I'm going to help him, I said firmly. But I want to make sure everything's on the up and up first. Smart, Bill agreed. Trust but verify. That's what Reagan used to say. After hanging up, I sat looking at those bank statements for a long time. If I gave Michael the money, I'd be dipping into funds I might need for my own medical care down the road. At 72, with a bum knee and high blood pressure, I wasn't getting any younger or healthier, but he was my son, my only child. What was the point of saving money, if not to help him when he needed it? Still, Bill's words nagged at me. The timing was too convenient. I needed to know more about Michael's financial situation before writing that check. I picked up my phone and dialed another number. Hello, Jennifer. It's Frank, Michael's dad. Do you have a minute to talk? Jennifer sounded surprised to hear from me. She and I had always gotten along well enough, though we weren't particularly close. She was a nice woman, smart, ambitious, a good match for Michael. Frank, of course, how are you? Michael told me you took good care of him after his hospital scare. Thank you for that. He's my son, I said simply. Listen, Jennifer, Michael mentioned you two are having some financial troubles. With the house? A pause, long enough to make me grip the phone tighter. Financial troubles. Her voice had a strange note to it. What exactly did he say? I explained about the underwater mortgage, the threat of foreclosure, the loan request. With each detail, the silence on the other end grew heavier. Frank, she finally said, her voice tight, we're not behind on our mortgage. The house is fine. I don't know what Michael told you, but we're not in danger of foreclosure. My stomach dropped. Are you sure? He was very specific. I'm positive. I handle our household finances. We're doing well, actually. Michael got a substantial bonus last quarter. She paused. I'm sorry, but whatever he told you isn't true. After we hung up, I sat in stunned silence. My own son had lied to me. Blatantly, elaborately lied, but why? I spent the rest of the day in my workshop, sanding wood with more force than necessary, trying to make sense of it all. By evening, my hands were raw and my mind was no clearer. The next morning, I drove to Michael's office. It was a tech company in one of those modern glass buildings downtown, all open floor plans and free snacks, from what he'd told me. I'd never been there before. The receptionist looked surprised when I asked for Michael Miller. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked, glancing at her computer screen. "No, I'm his father." Her expression softened. "That's nice. Let me see if he's available." 5 minutes later, Michael emerged from an elevator, looking startled to see me in the lobby. He was wearing a suit I didn't recognize, expensive looking with a silk tie. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "Thought we could grab lunch," I said casually. "I was in the neighborhood." It was a lie, but apparently lying ran in the family now. Michael checked his watch, that fancy one Jennifer had given him. "I have a meeting in 30 minutes, but I guess we could grab something quick." We walked to a cafe down the street. Michael ordered some complicated sandwich with avocado and sprouts. I got black coffee and a plain bagel. "So," I said after we'd settled at a small table by the window, "I talked to Jennifer yesterday." Michael froze mid-bite. "Oh? Yeah, funny thing, she seemed surprised when I mentioned your financial troubles. Said you weren't behind on the mortgage at all." His face went through a series of expressions: surprise, anger, calculation, before settling on something like shame. "Dad, I can explain. I'd like to hear it." I kept my voice level, though my heart was hammering. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you lied to me about needing $50,000. That's a hell of a thing to lie about." "Son," Michael set down his sandwich and ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit he'd had since childhood. "It's complicated." Then uncomplicate it for me. He looked around the cafe as if hoping for rescue, then sighed. "I do need the money. Just not for the mortgage." "What for then?" Another pause. "Investments. There's this opportunity at work. A startup some colleagues are launching. If I get in on the ground floor, I could triple my money within a year." I stared at him, disbelieving. "You lied about losing your house so I'd give you money for some get-rich-quick scheme?" "It's not a scheme, Dad. It's a legitimate business opportunity." His voice took on that condescending tone he sometimes used, like he was explaining something to a child. "But I knew you wouldn't understand that. You've always been so old-fashioned about money. Save, save, save. Never take risks." "Being honest with your father isn't old-fashioned, Michael. It's basic decency." His face hardened. "See, this is exactly why I didn't tell you the truth. You always judge me. Nothing I do is ever good enough for Frank Miller, master of moral superiority." The cafe suddenly felt too small, too public for this conversation. People at nearby tables were starting to glance our way. "We should discuss this later," I said, standing up, "when we're both calmer." "Fine." Michael stood too, leaving his half-eaten sandwich on the table. "But the offer is time-sensitive. I need an answer by the end of the week." I almost laughed. "You think I'm still considering giving you the money? After finding out you lied?" "It wasn't a lie, Dad. It was simplifying the situation to terms you'd understand." I shook my head and walked out. Behind me, I heard Michael call my name, but I didn't turn around. Back home, I paced my living room, too agitated to sit. The nerve of that boy, simplifying the situation. As if I was too stupid to understand his fancy investment opportunity, I picked up the phone to call Bill, then set it down again. This felt too personal, too shameful to share, even with an old friend. Instead, I found myself in front of the bookshelf where we kept our family photo albums. I pulled out one from when Michael was in high school. Gangly limbs, braces, awkward smile. There was a photo of him after winning a regional science fair, beaming with pride as I stood next to him, my hand on his shoulder. When had that bright-eyed boy turned into a man who would lie to his own father for money? My phone rang. It was Jennifer. "Frank, I'm so sorry about earlier," she said when I answered. "Michael told me what happened." "He shouldn't have lied to you." "No, he shouldn't have," I agreed. "But the investment opportunity is real," she continued. "Michael's been talking about it for months. It could be huge for us, life-changing money," I frowned. "So she was in on it too. Life-changing, huh? And what happens if this opportunity falls through? Will Michael come back for more money then?" "It's not like that," Jennifer insisted. "Michael believes in this company. He's putting in his own money too." "How much?" A hesitation. 20,000, and he wants 50 from me." I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. "Sounds like he's more willing to risk my retirement than his own savings." "Frank, please, just talk to him again. Let him explain properly." After we hung up, I sat heavily in Sarah's old rocking chair. What would she make of all this? Sarah had always been Michael's defender, finding excuses for his behavior, even when I thought he needed discipline. "He's sensitive, Frank," she'd say. "He needs encouragement, not criticism." Maybe she'd been right. Maybe years of my disapproval had driven Michael to lie, rather than risk hearing no from me again. Or maybe our son had just grown into a man who valued money over honesty. Either way, it hurt. 3 days passed without word from Michael. I spent them in my workshop, finishing Jennifer's jewelry box, even though I wasn't sure I'd ever give it to her now. Woodworking had always been my therapy. The smell of fresh-cut cedar, the precision of fitting joints together, the satisfaction of creating something solid and real. On the 4th day, the doorbell rang around dinner time. I opened it to find Michael on my porch, holding a bottle of whiskey. The good stuff, not the cheap brand I usually bought. "Peace offering," he said, holding it out. "Can we talk?" I stood aside to let him in, taking the bottle without comment. In the living room, I poured us each 2 fingers of whiskey in the crystal glasses Sarah had insisted on buying for special occasions. This didn't feel special, but it did feel like an occasion that required fortification. Michael took a sip, then set his glass down carefully on a coaster, another of Sarah's training successes. "I'm sorry, Dad, I shouldn't have lied to you." I nodded, waiting for more. "It's just," he sighed. "I knew how it would sound if I told you the truth." "Hey, Dad, want to invest in a tech startup?" You'd have dismissed it immediately. "Maybe," I conceded. "Or maybe I would have listened if you'd given me the chance. But you didn't respect me enough to try." Michael flinched at that. It wasn't about respect. It was about expediency. Expediency. I swirled the whiskey in my glass. That's a fancy word for cutting corners. For doing what's easy instead of what's right. Is that what you think of me? That I always take the easy way out? I don't know what to think anymore, Michael. 2 weeks ago, you were ashamed to call me your father. Now you want me to hand over my savings. It's giving me whiplash. He had the grace to look embarrassed. I was angry that day. I didn't mean it. Didn't you? I set my glass down harder than I meant to, because it felt like you did. It felt like years of resentment coming to the surface. Michael was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was subdued. Maybe there is some resentment. You've always been so rigid, so certain you know best. Even now you're sitting there judging me instead of trying to understand. Understand what? That you lied to get money out of me? That I'm trying to build something? His voice rose. That I'm trying to create security for my family, for Jennifer and for the kids we want to have someday. Isn't that what you'd want for me? The mention of grandchildren, theoretical ones that hadn't yet arrived, hit me in a soft spot. Sarah had always talked about grandchildren, about the joy they'd bring us in our old age. Of course that's what I want, I said more gently. But not at the expense of honesty. Not at the expense of our relationship. Michael leaned forward, sensing an opening. Then let me tell you about the investment now. The honest version. Against my better judgment, I listened. Michael talked for nearly an hour about the startup. Something to do with artificial intelligence and healthcare. It sounded impressive, though most of the technical details went over my head. So you see, he concluded, this isn't some get-rich-quick scheme. It's a groundbreaking technology with real potential to help people. I nodded slowly. It sounds interesting. But 50,000 is still a lot of money, Michael. Most of my liquid savings, I know. And I wouldn't ask if I didn't believe in this. His eyes, so like Sarah's, were earnest. Please, Dad, trust me on this. And there it was, the crux of the matter. Did I trust my son? A week ago I would have said yes without hesitation. Now I wasn't so sure. I need time to think, I said finally. This isn't a decision I can make tonight. Michael nodded, trying to hide his disappointment. Of course. But the investment window closes on Friday. That's the day after tomorrow. Always a deadline with him. Always pressure. After he left, I sat in the dark living room for a long time, nursing my whiskey and thinking about trust, about family, about what Sarah would advise me to do. The next morning, I made a decision. But before I acted on it, I wanted to verify a few things. Michael's story about the startup sounded plausible, but after the mortgage lie, I needed proof. I called the one person who might have insight into Michael's work world, his former college roommate, David, who now worked in venture capital. We weren't close, but we'd kept in touch over the years. David had always been straight with me. Health tech AI? David repeated when I mentioned the startup's name. Never heard of it. Let me check around. He called back 2 hours later, Frank, are you sitting down? Because I found something you need to hear. This company, HealthTech AI? David's voice was grim through the phone. It doesn't exist, Frank. At least not as a legitimate startup. I sat down heavily in my kitchen chair. What do you mean? I called some contacts in the healthcare tech space. Nobody's heard of it, David paused. But I did find something when I searched the name. It's registered as an LLC in Delaware, with only one employee, a guy named Victor Ramirez. The name meant nothing to me. Who's that? Michael's college friend, I think. They played intramural basketball together. The guy's had 3 failed startups in 5 years, Frank. He's known for convincing people to invest in ventures that never materialize. My stomach clenched. Are you saying it's a scam? I can't prove that, David said carefully. But I'd bet my last dollar it's not a legitimate investment opportunity. At minimum, it's incredibly high risk with someone who has a track record of failure. After thanking David, I hung up and sat staring at the wall. The same wall where Michael's high school graduation photo hung. In it, he was beaming, cap slightly askew, Sarah and me flanking him with proud smiles. Had my son really fallen so far? Was he involved in a scam or just duped by an old friend? Either way, I needed answers, real ones this time. I drove to Michael's house the next morning without calling first. It was a Thursday, he'd be at work, but Jennifer might be home. She worked from home 3 days a week as a graphic designer. Their house was in one of those new subdivisions, all identical modern designs with tiny yards and 3-car garages. Status symbols more than homes. It had always struck me as cold compared to the house where Michael grew up, but he seemed proud of it. Jennifer answered the door in yoga pants and a Northwestern University sweatshirt, looking surprised to see me. Frank, is everything okay? Not really. I didn't bother with pleasantries. Can I come in? She stepped aside, leading me to their sleek kitchen with its granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. Everything shiny, nothing with character. Coffee? She offered. I shook my head. Jennifer, I need to ask you something, and I need an honest answer. Do you know Victor Ramirez? Her face changed, just a flicker, but enough to tell me she recognized the name. Michael's friend from college? Sure, I've met him a few times. Why? Is he involved in this startup Michael wants me to invest in? Jennifer hesitated, then nodded slowly. He's the founder. Michael says he's brilliant. Did you know he's had 3 failed startups? That this company barely exists on paper? Her eyes widened. What? No, that can't be right. Michael says Victor's developed revolutionary AI technology. They've been working nights and weekends on it. Either she was a very good actress or she believed it too. I softened my approach. Jennifer, I'm worried Michael's being taken advantage of. Or worse, that he's... I couldn't bring myself to finish the thought. That he's what? Her voice had an edge now. Frank, what are you implying? I don't know what to think anymore. First, he lies about your mortgage. Then he's pushing me to invest in a company that looks suspicious from every angle I can see. Jennifer sat down at their kitchen island, her expression troubled. The mortgage lie was wrong. I told him that. But I truly believe he thinks this investment is legitimate. She looked up at me. Michael wouldn't scam his own father. He's not that kind of person. I wanted to believe that. God knows I did. Then he's being scammed himself, I said. Has he already put money into this? 20,000, like I told you. Our savings. Jennifer bit her lip. Frank, if what you're saying is true, I need to talk to Michael. Where is he today? At the office. They have a big client presentation. She checked her watch. He should be done around 3. I thanked her and left, promising to call later. As I drove away, I saw her through the window, already on her phone. Warning Michael, no doubt. Sure enough, my phone rang before I'd even reached the highway. Michael's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again, on the 4th call, I pulled over and answered. Jennifer says you came by. His voice was tight, controlled. What's going on? We need to talk, Michael. In person. I'm in the middle of a workday, Dad. I can't just make time, I cut him off. This is important. A pause. Fine. Meet me at Riverside Park at 4, by the boat landing. I spent the next few hours driving aimlessly, trying to organize my thoughts. What would I say to him? How could I get through to the son I'd raised, to be honest? To be better than this? The park was quiet when I arrived. A few mothers with strollers, an old man feeding pigeons. I sat on a bench overlooking the river, watching kayakers paddle against the current. Michael arrived at 4:15, still in his work clothes, but with his tie loosened. He looked harried, impatient. "I had to reschedule a client call for this," he said, sitting beside me. "What's so urgent?" "Health tech AI," I said without preamble. "Your friend Victor's company, tell me about it." Michael's expression shifted from annoyance to wariness. "I already told you. It's a healthcare AI startup with revolutionary technology. What more do you want to know? How about the truth? That it's barely a company at all, that your friend has a history of failed ventures, that you're asking me to pour my retirement savings into what looks suspiciously like a scam?" His face reddened. "You checked up on me, on Victor?" "Damn right I did. After you lied about the mortgage, did you think I'd just hand over $50,000 without asking questions?" Michael stood up, pacing in front of the bench. "This is exactly why I didn't come to you with the full story from the beginning. You always assume the worst about me." "I'm not assuming anything, I'm looking at facts." I kept my voice steady despite the anger bubbling inside me. 3 failed startups, Michael. A Delaware LLC with no employees except Victor. No presence in the healthcare industry. No venture capital interest. What am I missing here? "The vision," he spun to face me. "You're missing the vision. Victor is ahead of his time. Those other ventures failed because the market wasn't ready. But this one..." He trailed off, seeming to deflate slightly. "This one what?" I pressed. Michael sat back down, running a hand through his hair. "This one is different. Victor has actual technology this time. He showed me demos." "Demos can be faked. Companies can look legitimate on paper. People can be fooled, especially when they want to believe." "I'm not being fooled," Michael insisted, but there was a note of uncertainty in his voice now. "Then let me meet Victor," I said. "Let me see these demos, talk to other investors. If it's legitimate, I'll consider it." Michael hesitated. "There aren't many other investors yet. It's early stage." "How early?" "Just me and Victor so far." He wouldn't meet my eyes. "And you've already put in 20,000? A nod. "When did you invest?" 3 months ago." "And what have you seen for your money? Progress reports, development updates?" Michael's silence told me everything. "Son," I said gently, "I think you need to face the possibility that your friend has taken your money and is hoping to take mine too." "You don't understand." Michael's voice cracked slightly. "If I pull out now, I lose everything. Victor says we're at a critical stage. The next round of funding is what will make it all work." I felt a surge of pity. My son, my bright, ambitious son, had been taken in by a con man, and rather than admit it, he'd tried to rope me into the same scam. "Have you told Jennifer the whole truth?" I asked. He shook his head. "She thinks it's going well. I didn't want to worry her." "So you've been lying to your wife too?" Michael flinched. "It's not lying. It's protecting her from unnecessary stress." "Like you were protecting me by making up that story about your mortgage?" I couldn't keep the disappointment from my voice. We sat in silence for a long moment, watching the river flow past. A family of ducks paddled by, the mother in front, ducklings following in a neat line. "What am I supposed to do now?" Michael finally asked, sounding younger than his 43 years. "If I tell Jennifer I lost our savings." "You tell the truth," I said firmly, "to Jennifer and to the police." His head snapped up. "The police? If Victor defrauded you, that's a crime. It should be reported." "I can't do that." Michael shook his head rapidly. "Victor's my friend, and what if I'm wrong? What if the technology is real and I just need to be patient?" I sighed. "Then at least stop throwing good money after bad. Don't ask me or anyone else to invest until you have something concrete to show." Another silence fell between us, heavier than before. "I was desperate," Michael admitted finally. "After I put in our savings and nothing seemed to be happening. I panicked. I thought if I could get more funding, your money, it would jumpstart things, or it would just give Victor more to disappear with." I looked at my son, really looked at him. The lines around his eyes, the grey at his temples, the weight of failure in his shoulders. When had he gotten so old? When had we both? "I'm sorry, Dad." His voice was barely audible. I was ashamed, not of you, of myself. "And then I lashed out at you that day in the driveway because you've always been so damn honest, so principled. It made me feel worse about what I was doing." There it was, the truth finally. Ah, Michael. I reached out and put my hand on his shoulder, the same gesture from that science fair photo so many years ago. We all make mistakes. The measure of a man isn't whether he falls, it's whether he gets back up afterward. Pretty sure Mom used to say that, Michael said with the ghost of a smile. She did, and she was right. I squeezed his shoulder. So, what are you going to do now? He took a deep breath. Talk to Jennifer. Then maybe talk to a lawyer about our options for recovering the money. Good, I nodded. That's a start. We walked back to our cars together, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the park. Dad, Michael said as we reached the parking lot, about the money. I never should have asked, especially not the way I did. No, you shouldn't have. I unlocked my truck. But family isn't about keeping score, it's about being there for each other, even when it's hard, maybe especially then. 2 weeks later, Michael and Jennifer came for dinner at my house. Jennifer hugged me tightly at the door, whispering thank you in my ear. Over pot roast, Sarah's recipe, Michael told me he'd confronted Victor, who had admitted the technology was mostly theoretical. There was no functional prototype, no pending patents, nothing but ideas and slick presentations. He's agreed to return what's left of the money, Michael said. About 8,000. The rest he claims was spent on development costs. At least it's something, Jennifer said, reaching for Michael's hand across the table. I nodded. And the police? Michael sighed. We filed a report, but the detective wasn't optimistic. Victor technically didn't break any laws. He made promises and projections that didn't pan out, but that happens in startups all the time. The important thing, Jennifer added, is that we're moving forward, together. After dinner, while Jennifer helped me wash dishes, Michael wandered into my workshop. I found him there later, running his fingers over the cherry wood jewelry box I'd been making. This is beautiful, Dad. It's for Jennifer. I switched on the light above my workbench. For Christmas. She'll love it. He set it down carefully. Remember that birdhouse we built when I was a kid? I smiled. Of course, ugliest damn birdhouse in the neighborhood, but the birds didn't seem to mind. Michael laughed. A real laugh, the kind I hadn't heard from him in years. Dad, I've been thinking a lot about what you said that day in the park, about the measure of a man being whether he gets back up. I nodded, waiting. I want to be that kind of man, the kind who faces his mistakes and fixes them, the kind you raised me to be. Something warm expanded in my chest. Pride, relief, love. You are that kind of man, Michael. You just lost your way for a bit. He looked around the workshop at the tools hanging neatly on the wall, the projects in various stages of completion. Think you could use an apprentice? Maybe on weekends? I think I could, I said, smiling. Though I should warn you, I'm a demanding teacher. I wouldn't have it any other way. The next Sunday, Michael came over in old jeans and a faded t-shirt. We spent the afternoon working on a rocking chair I'd been designing, one that someday might hold a grandchild. We didn't talk much, just the occasional instruction or question. But in the comfortable silence, in the rhythm of work shared between father and son, I felt something healing. Later, as the sun was setting, we sat on the back porch with cold beers, admiring our progress on the chair. I know, I said. Your mother always believed you'd find your way, no matter how many detours you took. Michael smiled sadly. I miss her, especially at times like this. Me too, son. Every day. He took a sip of his beer, then said, I'm not ashamed, Dad, to be your son. I hope you know that. I nodded, my throat suddenly tight. I know. The maple tree in the yard was losing its leaves now, carpeting the grass in red and gold. Another season turning, another chance to get things right. In the end, that's all any of us can ask for. Not perfection, just the opportunity to learn from our mistakes, to pick ourselves up when we fall, and to know that the people who truly love us will be there, waiting when we find our way back home.